Salutations and greetings from our vibrant planet, so alive with happiness, so alive with understanding and comprehension, so alive with the joy of love. I am directing to the planet Earth this day the vibratory action of the amplification of 1,000 Easters to bring to mankind the resurrection spirit from the pains and anguish and sorrow of the passing of men from the screen of life. The hopes of men have been dashed to pieces countless times through the loss of one dearly beloved by individuals and by mankind. But the great love of God, with its ceaseless outpouring, does not fail to comfort mankind in all their grief and to re-establish the mighty flame of continuation within the focus and force field of their consciousness. There is no death, beloved ones, anywhere in the universe. If at all there can be said to be a death, it is the transmutation of misqualified energy. For misqualified energy itself must yield to the power of the divine radiance as it comes forth from out the great central sun, to correct and mend the faults of men, and to vest them with robes of power and dominion over outer conditions. The world has abode now in the historical mode from its conception to the present hour in a series of turmoils, and tumult has reigned where peace ought. Stand fast. Beloved ones, I am come then this day with this resurrection flame of 1,000 Easters to imbue the consciousness of mankind with renewed hope, hope that will overcome the thrust of all the despairs that have ever been generated within the consciousness of mankind by either fear or torment. Fear and torment have no place in a consecrated world. As I now hold the vision in my heart of men and women that are not in a condition of absolute perfection, a multitude pressing to the summit where stands the radiant Christ presence, I am aware that mankind in all lack, by touching the hem of the garment of Christ's consciousness, will feel a flow of immortal power, which in its divine efficaciousness will assuage all that which has brought them distress, will wipe away every tear from their eyes, will give them the ultimate compassion of their victory, and will assist mankind in finding in the historical moments of the future those crowning achievements which will wipe the past from the screen of life and bring to completion the fullness of the divine plan in accordance with God's own holy will. As I muse now upon the wonders of those life streams dedicated throughout the ages to the concentration and consecration of keeping the flame of God's holy will, I am reminded of a great pageant where first comes one upon the scene, followed by another in an endless procession of victory. I would call your attention, beloved ones, to the fact that history brings forth to mankind many infamous characters whose lives do not remind of nobility, but are indeed the outpicturing of sorrow and the sordid aspects which mankind would shed and shun. I therefore call to your attention that those noble men and women, imbued by God with the power of the Holy Spirit, are they who have contributed to the essential advancement of not only this age but of every age. I would call the attention of the Chelas and of mankind to the facts that the noble civilization that existed on Atlantis prior to the fall was directed by men of great spiritual vision and accomplishment, men who could, by stretching forth an hand, put an army to flight. I would call your attention then, beloved ones, to the fact that at the present time, this very hour, there are few upon earth who can command the elements, let alone command the elements within their own nature. The victory of mankind is the plan of God. It is His holy will that men shall rule in the temple of being. The earth must itself achieve its victory. And if the earth is to achieve its victory, it must be able to overcome the discordant vibratory action of violence and hate which mankind have scattered abroad in the atmosphere, which wastes away as the destruction at noontide, and is a vacuum of great harm, for it causes mankind's attention to be diverted, directing mankind's attention to the action of destructivity, and failing to inspire men in any measure to accomplish that which their souls cry out for. Therefore I am come this day to remind mankind of the essential elements of love which must be called forth in the cup of consciousness. Mankind's body, mankind's brain, mankind's feelings, mankind's intelligence must become like the Holy Grail, and the mighty light that is within them must permeate the shell of their being and gleam forth from them not only in outer appearance but in action as the will of God called forth and carried forth in all of its purity. I would call to your attention now, beloved ones, that ere I came to speak with you this morn, there was a specific action of the mighty Elohim of purity and the divine complement Astrea, whereby this great nation was encircled by this mighty circle and sword of blue flame in order to afford a tremendous protection to the emotional body of all mankind dwelling upon this continent, for it spreads abroad and expands to the north and floods forth to the south, from pole to crown mankind with nobility and with essential brotherhood. As I stand here now, desiring to amplify these benign qualities in mankind's consciousness, I am reminded of the fact that mankind have ceaselessly fallen backward, as it were, into old habits and habit patterns. I would therefore call the attention of every forthright student to the fact that there is a way whereby man can overcome his tendency and propensity to fall backward into old habits by holding forth the mighty light that is within him and permitting that light to take its dominion at the very specific moment when the great temptation stands at his door demanding his attention. Ladies and gentlemen, you do not come up over temptation by succumbing. You come up over temptation by overcoming. And you overcome by denying the power of that temptation to overcome you. In the words of the Christ when he was tempted upon the mount, "Get thee behind me, get thee behind me, get thee behind me." with this consciousness, you are able to speak unto that discordant and sometimes subtle temptation, whispering as a voice, "Thou shalt not surely die," and declare, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." The translation of vital and living truth into action in the world of men is that which will give them their victory. They can never achieve their victory by transferring to their consciousness mass hysteria and the idea of succumbing to violence and feelings of discord toward their fellow men. When the cares and burdens of the world rest in your consciousness, how can you see the light clearly? How can you see to remove the mote from your brother's eye when the mote of discord is in your own? Beloved ones, it is only by plucking out the mote of unfulfilled spiritual desires, by removing from your consciousness the idea that you have not yourselves yet achieved, and by recognizing that there is within you the mighty tide of life, that you shall be able to fulfill your spiritual destiny. Just so long as you have the idea that you cannot and have not fulfilled your victory, will you be adding to the momentum of that which pulls you down rather than exalts the God within you. Beloved ones, this is the tendency of criticism which abides in mankind. It causes mankind to criticize themselves. And I tell you, when they criticize themselves, it does not take long before they decide that they are guiltless and that someone else is guilty. And this propensity on the part of mankind to transfer their criticism for their own failures to others is so easy that it is like a snowball rolling downhill, gathering more momentum until life streams after a while do not seem able to control their emotions at all, but an absolute human viciousness and unfairness are judges and juries of one another, convicting one another of conditions for which they oftentimes stand blameless in the eyes of God. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, all criticism of mankind ought to cease. It does not matter who you are criticizing. You are always criticizing some part of God. If that individual is acting in accordance with the law of human control, then I tell you, by criticizing him, you will only be pulling him down into a greater degree of degradation. If instead you will exalt the God within yourself and the God within that individual, you will be raising him up. I call this to your attention today because it is essentially the factor of criticism which is responsible for the condition in your land at the present moment. The assassination of your president is in one sense a direct action of criticism flowing through many, many minds and generating and fomenting a tremendous hate which takes its focus in one who is susceptible, and then that individual carries out the nefarious acts of the many. The thought processes of the many are carried out by the one. Individuals then point their finger at that one and say, "Behold how despicable a man." And yet, beloved ones, this action was also done in the case of Iscariot. For mankind to the present hour point their finger at Iscariot and say of him, he is a despicable betrayer of good and of the Christ. I tell you, beloved ones, mankind ought to recognize the rights for men to improve. Those who believe in re-embodiment and who affirm that people do return to the screen of life to right the wrongs that they have done and to continue progressively in achieving an outpicturing of their God design must recognize in all fairness that men and women do improve, and death itself is no seal upon their improvement, nor guarantee that they shall improve in the next embodiment. Neither is the passing of any day, and yet so can it be. For any day can dawn, and that individual can shed from their consciousness the cocoon of ignorance and arise into the virtue of righteousness. Therefore it behooves each life stream to recognize that the power of criticism is but one of negation, which tears down, which destroys, as Saint Germain has told you before, all that is noble and good in the one so doing. When you shall recognize the fact that by praising the God within mankind you can exalt them, you will then be taking a mighty step forward which will raise the entire earth. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, very few today in the various religious activities of the world and the political groups are aware of the fact that this is so. They do not know. They see the wind blowing only by its action upon material objects. They feel the wind passing by them, but they do not know from whence it comes or whither it goeth. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you are most fortunate to have this knowledge and to understand these laws. Mankind today do not understand how that the issuing forth of wrong thoughts from the multitudes is a destructive activity which causes them to reap a harvest of destruction across the land and darkens the very sky with violence and hate. Mankind do not understand that conversely and righteously, by amplifying the power of good and the power of spiritual attainment for all, that they are giving the world a thrust forward which is able to exalt mankind into the victory of their ascension en masse. As I stand here today, I am aware of the mighty power that is generated upon our lovely planet Venus. I am aware of the great beauty reflected in the countenance of our people. I am aware of the splendid nobility that rests upon their brow. Some of your sculptors during the Grecian era have attempted to capture some of this nobility. I would like to call your attention to Bartholdi's Statue of Liberty, which in itself is a fairly true and accurate representation of some of the ladies of our planet. For I tell you that it might be the opinion of mankind that there be a trifle masculinity manifesting within their countenance, but this does not detract from them, for it only denotes the balance of the masculine and feminine elements within their world. You see here a state of unbalance, but as God intended, these manifestations were to come to a sense of balance, whereby they would not detract from one another, but add to one another. And the complementary aspects of men and women were intended to find their completion through the cycle of the twin ray. Mankind, however, have not understood this, and have wrongfully distorted it down through the centuries. However, your beloved Saint Germain has ever so frequently brought individuals together where it was possible in order to bring out the best qualities in each life stream, the complementary aspects that in themselves afford mankind the blessing of the twain existence in manifestation. Now this is all for a purpose. And when men understand that it is the soul that controls the outer form, when they understand that it is the intention of God to permit the soul to completely control form, they will understand that nature itself is blameless, that nature itself is pure, that the planet upon which you live is immaculate, that it is intended to be a shining star in this solar system. I would like to call to your attention that all of the thorns of life manifest in nature today are the result of nature's absorption of mankind's discordant thoughts and feelings. These discordant thoughts and feelings have set brother against brother, and nation against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. These discordant thoughts and feelings have set religions that should and ought to be a part of one vast brotherhood against each other. Doctrinal tenets, divisions, and all manner of evil has flooded forth in competitive spirit among these various groups that were intended to manifest the wholeness of unity. Ladies and gentlemen, the political scene and the religious scene is one of gnawing frustration to the mankind of earth. Those whose hearts are dedicated to the principles of cosmic unity, of oneness upon earth as it is in heaven, find sometimes that this frustration becomes an obsession, and I would like to urge, therefore, that men shed this feeling, for it will not in any way further their ends, nor bring about a harmony of hearts. If mankind are to have a harmony of hearts, it will be because they themselves have readied themselves for the divine advance. I would like to call your attention that your beloved Jesus and your beloved El Morya, that your beloved El Morya, your beloved Kuthumi, and your precious Mother Mary have all taken their ascension. They have all pressed forward to their victory. They have all accepted and chosen to go on rather than remain upon this planet. There are those who for various reasons have elected to remain, but these are few where the karmic board has actually approved their remaining. In some cases, individuals, because of a lack of understanding, have chosen to remain even when their ascension was offered to them, and they have accepted a role upon this world for some time to come, but it has not always been in their best interests. When individuals are offered the victory of their ascension because of divine merit and grace, it is ever so wise that they accept. But I wish to stress that man should not judge concerning this matter, for some, and I point this out to you this morning with great accuracy, some, according to the record, have been given the offer of their ascension and also have been given the choice to remain where it was recommended by the karmic board that they should remain for the benefit of the earth. In these cases, the individual has been given a great protection so that they would not lose the achievement which has been already merited and won, but would continue on forward in the great light. I would like to call to your attention, beloved ones, that I am speaking to you on a ray of light projected from our planetary home. I would like to call to your attention that as it passes through the effluvia of human creation, it finds today a great deal of cluttering in the atmosphere of earth from discordant thoughts and manifestations, but it continues to pierce the gloom of human maya and bring forth this instruction for the admonishment of mankind. I would like to point out to you that I have come in a sense and measure of instructive data. I am bringing forth a certain amount of spiritual information, points on the law this day, which are invaluable to those students who are interested in the deeper points of the law, that they may be able to have our instruction and have a greater understanding of their own mission. You see, beloved ones, there are many yet upon this planet, and I am sorry to say some among the students, who have not been able to accept the reality of their own ascension. They have not yet accepted the possibility of their own victory. They are too far immersed in the sense of inadequacy of the self. This is only because they are wedded to their outer self and have not yet relinquished their hold upon it. They have not yet accepted the wonderful radiance of their divine design. They have not yet accepted the fullness of that which God holds for them. They have not seen through His eyes, but through their own eyes. To these I say, forsake then the looking upon yourselves as a man. Do not measure yourself as a man, but measure yourselves as God sees you, as potential sons and daughters of God the Most High. Measure yourselves as victors, not conquered, and you will find that the thought processes that are generated within you will bring you into greater attunement with us and with the lovely Lady Venus. You will find the power of the mighty God presence descending in flaming victory upon the altar of your heart. You will find the discord will drop away from you as dross in a fiery furnace. You will find that the power of light and light's perfection is being magnified. You will find that the conditions of the world that seem unendurable become bearable. You will find that all that is unhappiness can be transmuted to happiness. You will find that doubts and fears concerning your future will begin to vanish from your mind as you awake to the light of the dawn of 1,000 resurrections, to realize that God is resurrected within you each morning as you open your eyes, to realize that with the coming of consciousness to the screen of life, you become once again fashioned in His image, to realize that this is necessary, to realize that you must accept this each day for yourselves, each moment and each hour. It is not enough to merely accept the thought once. Statement was made and recorded in Christian literature to the effect that mankind should believe upon the Lord Jesus and that they would be saved. I call to your attention the power of this great truth in this wise, that to believe once is not enough. The belief must be reaffirmed each day. The belief must be reaffirmed each hour. The belief must be reaffirmed each moment. And the reason for that is because there is a contradictory thought of Antichrist which abides in the atmosphere of the planet, generated from the mass mind and consciousness, which continually seeks to rob mankind of their spiritual victory because they are posited in this world, because they are positioned here. Therefore, I would like to call to your attention once again that you must continually reorientate yourselves until such a time as the great magnet of heaven speaks to you because of proximity, saying, "Come up higher." You see, beloved ones, until the bar of iron comes close to the magnet, it is not seized and pulled completely into the heart of the magnetism. And therefore mankind, ere they reach that position where their ascension is assured, must needs be to slough off constantly all outer conditions, and must constantly position themselves in consciousness toward the heart of God. This lifting up of the consciousness is a wise maneuver, and all who are wise will drink of this cup of holy wisdom and will afford themselves thereby a leap into spiritual identity, which itself is their portion. Blessed ones, as I speak to you this day, I am so aware of the facts that occupy your consciousness, and yet I cannot succumb to the pressures of these outer thoughts. I cannot succumb, I cannot answer you this day concerning those outer thoughts, for these are what they are that occupy your consciousness. Your desire to have me speak directly to you individually and answer your questions this morning would not afford you the victory which I desire to give you. For these questions stem not from your great God self, which is without question, but stems only from the human self, which itself has fear and doubt. By shedding this fear and doubt, by casting it into the great fire of God's love and letting it be transmuted, you yourselves will find the answers within your own being, and then I will be able to speak to you on a future occasion, perhaps, when the information which I give will assist you towards your victory, and then you will have a blessing that knows no defeat. In the name of God, from out the great central sun, with all the blessings of our planet and our people, I confer upon the earth this day the electric vibratory action of the planet Venus. I confer upon America that God design which is her portion. I call to your attention the radiant cloud, the blue field, the stars within the cloud, the burst of light that comes forth, one out of many. Mankind and America must behold this oneness out of many. They must recognize that this land must be made great by their endeavors. It is not enough for them to read the record of those who have marched from coast to coast in exploration and achievement. It is necessary for them, within the borders of their own kingdom, to find their victory, each one. The people of America must unite as never before to throw off the yoke of tyranny and communism. The threat continues. The decrees and calls of the students has borne fruit, but it is not yet enough. The tide must rise higher and higher in complete opposition of all that is so completely opposed to the light of God. I would like to point out that even in Russia today, there is a stirring in the hearts of certain leaders there, and an awareness that there is much to be desired in their own system. There is a sort of a feeling of envy that occupies their consciousness as they gaze upon America and its system. They will not admit this even to themselves, and yet silently within their hearts they are aware of it, and therefore they are inclined to stand somewhat in awe. There is a strange juxtaposition in the world today, therefore, with some of the leaders of that great land, of Mother Russia, today standing in awe of all the advancement and progress which has been given to America and to the free world. Yet they have accomplished in their system certain benefits to their people. However, I would like to call to the attention of mankind that these benefits are so limited by comparison to the great benefits which come about through freedom and through the amplification of God's power in man. The nations that are devoted to the glory of God, the nations that desire to have leaders who are God-imbued men, shall certainly advance and move forward. But it is necessary that they guard as never before the citadel of their own being and the citadel of their national security. Mankind cannot afford any longer to be complacent. They cannot afford to look backward, lest they become a pillar of salt on the world scene. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, all that Saint Germain has worked for and served for on behalf of freedom is at stake, and it is at stake for you and your posterity. Beloved ones, you would not wish to awaken to the bleakness of a day where you were denied your freedom, I am sure, and therefore I urge all to acknowledge the great power of liberty and liberty's portion. For Mother Liberty stands today as the mother of the world. She stands today holding in her hand not only the great book of the law of life which I am, but she stands with one hand to bind up the wounds of the world, to heal those that are ill of body and mind, to confer substance upon those who lack substance, to bring about the flame of illumination to those who are ignorant, to carry the great torch of freedom to every corner of the globe, and to assert the dominion of the Lord over the whole earth. This is the law of liberty. This is the law of our planet. May it be the law of yours. I thank you and bid you good afternoon.
Let us sing number 9 to the tune of Finlandia.
dismissed in an unprecedented manner by our beloved El Morya. O thou essence of God good, thou wondrous holy will which I am, gird now the planet round with thy radiance, and seal each heart in its God design, until there is fulfilled in the temple of man's being the sacred unfoldment of all that is recorded there by fingers of living fire. As the law of God was written and engraven upon stone and handed to Moses, so we say now, O thou Holy One, engrave thy laws upon the hearts and minds of men, and let them feel the pressure both of thy offering and of their acceptance of that holy offering. I call now to the entire Darjeeling Council assembled to bring mankind to a rapt attention, whereby there is created within them the recognition of the mighty tide of light that pours forth from their own heart center. Make them aware in their extremities of that which is within. Make them aware then of the eternal presence anchored there. Make them aware of the eternal presence anchored everywhere within the universal consciousness. Make them aware that no thing exists outside of the great circle of thy hallowed being, for thou art all, and in thee there is no room for either darkness or discord or despair. In thee is the all-expansive, all-pervading, supreme glory which comes forth from the sun and is the power to light man's way to the end of the day of his own individualized perfection. Hallow thou then these hearts and heart chalices, hallow then these grail presences, and make of these the holy knights of the Table Round, those who shall commune in such purity as to be worthy of thy love. Our Father in heaven, we thank thee. We consecrate these souls in Saint Germain's name to the holy brotherhood of life. We say, seal them in the mighty flames of God. Let them then be kept within the hollow of his hand, and abide there forever. With the sign of the heart and the head and the hand, the brotherhood eternal conveys to you the presence of God throughout each day to come. Abide in this. Abide in this. Abide in this. Peace be with you, O beloved children of God. Oracles of heaven through the ages have spoken to men in times both of sadness and in times of exaltation. But the power of the eternal hand of God is always over the earth, over the nations, and over the hearts of its people. I am come this day to convey the deepest blessing of the ascended masters and ascended ones upon all those devoted in holy service to the exalting of the spirit of light in man. Man today, surrounded by turmoil and confusion, are so frequently in the status of the lost sheep that it is ever so important that mankind recognize that they have a shepherd who, while manifesting through their holy Christ self in wondrous adoring love poured out to them as from the Bishop of Souls, that they recognize the presence of lesser dignitaries upon the planetary body who have in a lesser range of service endeavored to expand the great light within the souls of men. These are also of the house of our Father. And though it be true that some of these are indeed serving in the political arena and serving the needs of men in other than an ecclesiastical capacity, I would call to your attention that God, our Father, recognizes the benign in spirit, whether in an exalted position among men or in a position of lesser service. The capacity to greatness within the human heart is given to all. When our Master, in and among the multitudes, desired to select the supreme example, he lifted up a little child and set him in the midst of them, and said, "Whosoever shall humble himself and become as a little child is great in the kingdom of God." All men aspire to greatness, and it is this desire implanted within them in the God flame of their hearts that causes them to aspire to themselves render a service noteworthy before their peers, before men. Because men are sometimes too frequently bereft of holy reason, they have so frequently abandoned the simple example of the little child, and they have in anger and turmoil desired to exalt their human self without rendering to God the service which even the little one could, on the occasion of this day, when grief has saddened the hearts of a great nation and world, it is the desire of the Ascended Masters and the Darjeeling Council that I bring to your attention this wondrous example, so that you may meditate upon that which all men can be. The capacity to love is not limited to the great. The capacity to desire to love is not limited to those who are in exalted positions from the outer standpoint of men. The position to love is one which all can instantly achieve, for all can love. The world today needs love as never before. And in the senseless bickerings that occupy the attention of men, they seldom realize even a mite of virtue. Yet, when they offer themselves in a spirit of consecration, as the holy saints have done, in seeking to give and to render by a supreme effort of their being some service of wonder to life, they are raised on high by the great God flame that is within them. Prior to my ascension, as an officer of the Holy Church to which I then belonged, I aspired with all my heart to secure from the hand of God all the wonders which his love could convey. And so I was taught inwardly the law of the violet flame, and I knew an inward communion with Saint Germain, which has been given to other princes of the church on occasion. I was able to be subsequently raised to the position of an ascended being, to surround the beloved Master Jesus. And I consider this a supreme tribute of heaven. But as most of us are not satisfied to merely enjoy the wonders of heaven, we continue to convey our love and service to mankind in many ways. Myriad angels beam their light earthward each day, bearing messages of love from our councils and from the councils of even stars beyond your ken. The present state of men's minds need not be their permanent state, nay, should not be their state for 1 hour. Progress is the watchword of eternity. Progress is the watchword of the Ascended Masters. Progress is the desire of God for all life. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live, is not an empty statement, but is full of all the meaning of universal love. Death has no reality. Death has no finality. Death has no meaning in the heart of life. Death is nothing. It is cessation of consciousness temporarily. It is a transfer from one octave to another, but it is unreal and in no way expresses life. How could nothing come forth from something? For something can only bring forth more of its own blessed self. God, the Eternal One, is so very near to the hearts of the American people this day. The American people are scarcely aware of the presence of life, for it has been the wish of Saint Germain, in assuaging the grief of the American people, to bring a more than ordinary blessing to them this day. Therefore, every citizen of this land has been granted a special angel of mercy to walk with them through this day, and thenceforward for a period of 7 days. This angel of mercy is to convey the balm of heaven to the American people and to assuage the cup of their grief in the loss of the chief of state of this great nation. Saint Germain and the entire Karmic Board desire to express the condolences of heaven to mankind on this historic occasion, for it bears great and marked similarity to the loss of another great leader of this nation, President Lincoln. As the ministers of heaven direct their love to you, we ask you in God's name to raise your consciousness above the level of human triteness. We ask you to recognize more diligently the need for emulating the profound example of the little child. When the Master spake unto them and said, "A little child shall lead them," he referred to the infant and expanding progressively radiance of the Messiah within their own hearts. Those of you imbued with holy wisdom are aware that every child of God, that every child that was ever created upon this earth, regardless of chronological age, has a holy Christ self or higher mental body. You are aware of the proximity of this radiance to the force field of life within man. This must be nurtured in the human heart and expanded over human concepts. Human concepts have not given men their freedom, as the great masters have so frequently expressed to you, and it is our hope this day that in the holy name of wisdom you shall partake more of this example of the little child that shall lead you, and shall accept the greatness of yourselves, each one, to fulfill that specific mission and momentum which is your own portion of heaven's lot. The tendency of the world is to look out upon the scene and to behold and to honor the great, but the greatness that is within them passes unnoticed, and as they perceive by comparison the lesser image of that greatness that is within them, there is a tendency on the part of mankind to criticize one another and to express discontent because this one and that one is not manifesting the fullness of what their own concept of perfection is. Let all men recognize that the humility of Alpha and Omega is itself wondrous to behold and worthy to be emulated. Mankind today, if they would be great, will follow this example of the child and will offer themselves to God and to the masters in consecration, not in discontent. Consecration, then, to the high ideals and lofty concepts of spiritual adornment will cause both women and men to adorn themselves with those ornaments of spirit which are worthy of their own exalted office. It is not enough for mankind to fashion themselves according to their own personal identity. They must be fashioned according to the Christ identity of their own world, the reality, the full potency, the wonder that is expressed by the oracles of heaven. The oracles of heaven, in all of their utterances, had they been heeded by mankind, would have long ago wiped away every tear from human consciousness. But in the holy name of mercy I bear to you this thought. It is not too late today or in days to come to resolve to highly accept the expressions of your own deity, the greatness that lies locked within your own heart, and by accepting it to recognize in hope not only the possibility ever present with you for your own victorious ascension in the light, but whatever holy path you follow, to recognize that it is God's path upon which you walk. Men today concerned with lesser conditions do not frequent the temples of wisdom enough that they might from holy wisdom draw forth the magnification of that holy Trinosophia in outer expression as reality upon the screen of life. Reality, beloved ones, in consecration and service. I come to you this morning bearing the love and the blessing of the brotherhood, the compassion of the ascended ones, and in eulogy of the greatness that is within all men. This greatness, when it passes in the passing of a person, is noted by the world. The arrival of a person is noted by the great ones also, as witnessed the visit of the Magi to the manger of the tiny babe. If men would fancy that other men were yet a babe and stand adoringly at the manger of their identity to worship the Christ and bear the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, they would imbue the human spirit of that one with a divine tenderness, enabling that one to greater fulfill the expectancy of their own expression in the light, and a consecration which would subsequently ensue would so bring about to mankind the perfect example within the folds of that one's identity, that men would applaud within themselves all that that one would express to them. But let them gaze within at the temple of immortality within their own heart, and then resurrecting the power of life within themselves, say with the living Christ, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead in trespasses and in sins, yet through me he shall live. Beloved ones, your karma is not a grave or a pit to draw you down into the density of human creation, for the great supreme magnet of your own God presence is above you, and the holy orders of heaven stand ready to receive you at all times. The example of the little child is a matrix into which you may focus your consciousness, recognizing that the little man-child, the living Christ within you, is expanding and stretching tiny limbs of being until he fulfills his wondrous mission within your own being. As I close my address to you this day, I wish to pay tribute to this great nation under God, which has been blessed by so many wonderful life streams who have rushed to defend it in times of crisis. Accept then, beloved ones, our own blessings upon you. Accept the blessings of your beloved Saint Germain, and in memoriam of your own past president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the ascended masters wish to place a laurel wreath of victory in the etheric realms above the temple of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery, that this glittering laurel wreath in the atmosphere shall pay tribute and homage to all who have served nobly to raise the standards of God's government over the hearts of men. And when the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, the hearts of men beating in one supreme unison, the Kyrie eleison of divine virtue expanded to all shall fulfill to all that Christ has come again, that his wings of magnificent light have enfolded all, and that peace upon earth and in heaven reigns supreme in the heart of the little child dedicated to fulfillment of the Father's plan. I thank you and bid you good morning. Please be seated. To those of you who are not familiar with Cardinal Bonzamo, he made his ascension many years ago after his passing. He has dictated in the past, but this is our first dictation from him. I think most of you recognize the reason for his dictation this morning. I had thought that Saint Germain was coming, and it was a complete surprise to me when I saw Cardinal Bonzamo rather than Saint Germain. I had fully believed that Saint Germain was to dictate and had myself prepared for his vibratory action. It was a great surprise to me to hear from Cardinal Bonzamo on this occasion. Our hearts are full of gratitude to the great masters. I feel that Cardinal Bonzamo gave us many wonderful words to think upon, and in a simple manner that no doubt bespeaks the greatness of his heart. O imperial and majestic presence of life, I am come solemnly this day before the great karmic board to resolutely call to the attention of every august member thereof the wonders of the universal presence of God, to whom we pay homage in grateful, adoring service to the light that has brought us to this place wherein our consciousness can abide and receive the sacred tomes of our own divinity, those missives written with the Spirit of the living God and inscribed within the temple of our own immortal being. Let us then resolve this day to descend in consciousness unto the force field of the planetary body and bring to mankind greater awareness of themselves in the God-free sense, that they may absorb from the radiant lives of the ascended Master Jesus, beloved Saint Germain, and all those who have to do with the sacred power of freedom, the necessary radiation and power of the light of God that does not fail, until the perfection of shining examples becomes modeled before the eyes of mankind, to inspire them to a new sense of freedom, and to exalt before all men's exalted vision the necessities of spiritual attainment, the pinions on which men shall rise, and the victorious sense which is the requisite of each hour of victory. As I come now, together with my retinue, before you here in the city of New York, I call to your attention that it is necessary that I address you as gods and not as men. For the fiat of immortal life was sent forth unto gods, and it is therefore preserved unto the present hour, that regardless of what state men may have descended into in consciousness, the holy presence of life must, by the sense of God victory, preserve the immaculate concept as an indomitable treasure of light's perfection, and make that known unto mankind as the blueprint for the construction of their own holy lives and future doing. I call to your attention, ladies and gentlemen, that life, in the sense of the passing of the hours and moments would be wholly meaningless if it were not for the Spirit of God happiness which pervades the shining hour. Those who have languished in prison at various times, or who have been incarcerated in various institutions from which they could not escape, realize what the power of freedom means. Those, however, who have never experienced this condition, beloved ones, do not fully recognize the meaning of God freedom. You have all experienced the chains of mortal consciousness. You have experienced the meaning of limitation. You have witnessed at various times how that the power of controlling your own thoughts was exceedingly difficult. Know then that it is the will of heaven to give you victory over all outer conditions and dominion in your worlds. This requisite then is required, that you place your attention upon the ascended Master's octave, that you may magnetize from that octave the help and assistance which your hearts crave and for which you long. Bear in mind well, beloved ones, that as you hear my voice and feel my radiant presence, there are myriad individuals throughout the planetary body that do not have the same privilege which you have. These also desire to have some contact with the invisible world and to feel the reality of the shining light from on high. These too are sons and daughters of God. These too were created in the divine image. These have forgotten to a greater degree, in many cases than you who are here, the wonders of that image immortal. There are some, however, who walk not in this way, who have a faith in the presence of heaven. And I address myself to these as well, whether they be present here or not, saying to all, the mementos of freedom which you ought to cherish are locked within your own being. These treasures are not outer objects, although mankind have often fixed their consciousness on the idea that their lives consisted of the abundance of the things which they possessed in an outer sense. I would call your attention then to the spiritual treasures of immortality which are resident within your being, whether awakened or whether realized or whether unperceived. These treasures can be recognized, can be called forth, can be magnetized, can be glorified. And as you do this blessed deed, O loved ones, you will expand in the force field of your identity the power of those divine qualities until mankind themselves are required to acknowledge the presence of life that is within the temple of your own being. Mankind have looked to the outer shrines of identity without recognizing the power of light that is in the inner center of their own being. I am come this day to renew the covenant of God with everyone who will recognize that the God to whom they have called is nigh at hand, at the very door. Beloved and blessed one, mankind have shattered their own God identity in the same manner in which this glass was dashed to the floor, and they have tried themselves to put the pieces together again with great difficulty. I would like to call to your blessed attention that it requires the master consciousness of God to mend all human ills, to put together the pieces of mankind's divine identity. This cannot be done by an outer action, although mankind so frequently feel that through acquiring outer wisdom they will be able to exalt themselves. They often find that this falls far short of the mark, and mankind have come to the place where they recognize that they stand at a great crossroads. This crossroads is the crossroad of human identity as it crosses the divine identity, and they become exceedingly puzzled as they try to extricate themselves from the tangled threads of identity. They behold around them the upturned faces of the multitudes, and they recognize that all do not agree in their concepts of spiritual ideas. The concepts of mankind become then a tangled web, and it becomes difficult for mankind to understand that this web is not of God's creation, but of outer creation, human creation, and the mere gropings of mankind trying to find themselves, as it were, in the dark. I am come this day to bring to the attention of each one of you the great power that is in the ascended Master's octave, the great power that is locked within your own hearts. This place here in New York has been dedicated to the service of the light, and I am grateful to come here today and to expand wings of light over the hearts of the people, that gladness increase, and that the holy oil of spiritual anointing be poured out upon the wondrous consciousness of mankind. May I, ladies and gentlemen, have your attention. Your consciousness is your true identity. I refer not to the outer consciousness, but to the mighty, pure stream of God consciousness that flows from your presence as a crystal clear river flowing from the throne of God, until mankind sully this consciousness by creating thought forms and ideas of human doubt and fear, of human discord and distress. It remains a pure stream, and it possesses the power of victory and the power of conferring upon each one a multitude of spiritual blessings, which shall give them the power of victory to overcome all outer conditions in this present day. Ladies and gentlemen, you need not be bound by the power of outer conditions. You can cast them aside as a garment and put it in the rag bag of life, so that you no longer have to wear it again. It is tattered. You have outgrown it. You have expanded beyond it. Cast aside then a state of human consciousness and commit it to the mighty violet transmuting flame, that the power of light in you may expand until men behold your good works and see that you individually are a city set upon a hill that cannot be hid. Near our retreat in Darjeeling, where beloved El Morya holds his focus of God's holy will, there is one lone green pine tree upon which the Master dotes, and I say this with a twinkle in my eye, for it is in one sense his favorite tree. Although it is true that El Morya has not outwardly permitted the decking of this tree in the custom and manner of mankind, he has gilded it in his heart with spiritual ornaments and traced every needle in his consciousness, because he recognizes in this tree a certain stalwart concept of the power that points toward the heavens. He sees the tall top of this tree as pointing toward God and God's will. He recognizes in this particular tree that it is rooted deep in the heart of the earth and absorbs the currents of the high mountain ranges near Darjeeling. He realizes that the balm that flows from this tree as a sweet essence of the pine speaks of eternal goodwill. And so, in one sense, he has made a shrine of this tree. I tell you this, preceding the Christmas season, to point out to you that while the masters do not have human qualities, that they do have an appreciation of beauty and loveliness and a consecration, sometimes wedded to form, but always wedded to the spirit behind the form. Mankind mistakenly often attach themselves to outer conditions, so much so that a mother becomes completely absorbed in the life of her child. Or the other way around, people become attached to outer conditions, and when for one reason or another there is a shattering of that form, because they have not loved the great God presence behind the form, grief then extends itself into their world, and they find that they must cope with a very difficult situation. There are many similar situations into which mankind have plunged themselves, but I would like to call to the attention of all here that beloved Mother Mary and myself have always sent out unto mankind an immaculate and holy concept concerning the very power to love. I would this day expand and explore the idea of true divine love with you, that as a mother I may bring the great cosmic sense of motherhood into greater awareness to all, including those individuals. I'm sorry, the thread is broken. Those of you who are aware that this room is filled with a white lace-like substance. It is like a filigree substance. It's like yeast in a sense, or soap suds in a way, but it's light and it's jeweled. It's all over the room, and if anyone walks across it, it all falls down and collapses. And when it collapses, it breaks the entire contact with the master that's dictating. I can't possibly. I can pick it up if it's just a slight movement in the room, but if someone crosses the entire room, it shatters the whole substance that we have built up. Most gracious ladies and gentlemen, may I also extend to you my gratitude in return, and on behalf of the Mother Liberty express to you her regrets for the loss of the transmission. But as this messenger has told you, this is not lost indeed, but is released into your own precious holy Christ selves, that you might receive therefrom the momentum of the great light which she bore to you in her flaming torch, that you might have the regenerative powers of the spiritual light from on high set forth within your own spinal column as within the torch, so that the flames of freedom and illumination may illumine your minds and set them free to know how to walk in the days ahead, when perplexities may come before you as snow driven by the biting wind. You shall be able then to resist and to stand in high resolve before the heart of your presence and the presence of freedom, and you shall recognize the power of freedom's flame and the liberty flame as mighty pillars of light. You shall recognize that freedom is within you, and that freedom which is within you is inherent within the planet itself, and therefore magnifying the Lord as days pass by will bring to all life upon earth a greater measure of consecration, and this place, which is dedicated as a home of light, shall become more consecrated day by day to that sacred purpose. May I express to you the blessings of the great white brotherhood on behalf of all the ascended and angelic host. Will you say to me now, Saint Germain, I pledge my life to my great God flame? Saint Germain, I pledge my life to my great God flame. Saint Germain, I pledge my life to my great God flame. Saint Germain, I pledge my life to my great God flame. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the great Karmic Board and beloved Mother Mary and the Lady Masters of Heaven, we accept the paternal felicity of your hearts and the maternal consecration of your total identity in the chalice of your being. Good afternoon.